No Slapping Up is a podcast hosted by Youth Against Gender-Based Violence, a program sponsored by ORG Education. This podcast is a platform where we'll highlight, discuss, and enlighten youth and the wider public on issues related to gender-based violence. Another father lost his life the other day. Black man, wake up and find your way. Tell me, why we killing one another? Don't you recognize that it's your brother? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second episode of No Slapping Up. I'm Rashade, and I'll be hosting today's episode. This episode's topic is how we contribute to gender-based violence socially and culturally. I'd like to introduce my co-hosts, Philip, Alexandria, Sabrina, and Sarah. Okay, so let's begin with an excerpt from Asian Pacific Institute on Gender-Based Violence. Cultural identities contain the histories of a people that include traditions, struggles, achievements, and triumphs. Cultures nourish pride, resilience, belonging, intersectional identities, and a connection to community. The culture is used to justify gender-based violence and inequality by invoking traditional beliefs and practices about how women and girls should be treated. If culture defines the spaces within which power is expressed and gender roles are enshrined, then our movement is here to push back. After all, some traditions and explanations do have an expiration date, and cultural DNA, just like individual DNA, changes with every generation. So, do you all think in the last episode, we talked about how the Bahamas is leading with a lot of reported assault cases? It's like 133 per 100,000 compared to the global average of 15 per 100,000. Do you think it's more of the Bahamas being more open to reporting and people coming out and saying that things happen to them than the rest of the world being a little bit more sheltered and dealing with cases and stuff in-house, if you understand what I mean?
Yes, I think it's actually a bit of both, actually. I think compared to certain countries and cultures in the world, we do have a bit more reporting going on in the Bahamas than elsewhere. So I don't know if you recall from the previous episode, we talked about honor crimes, where in especially certain Middle Eastern countries, where it is seen as the female's fault whenever things like rape happen, and there are cases where the woman actually faces violence, or she's killed by usually the father or some male in the family who feels as though she's brought shame on the family. And so in countries like that, obviously they're not going to be open to reporting any rape. They don't even mention it to a close friend because of the dire consequences that may happen as a result. In addition to that, we also have to think about access to being able to report these things. Also in those countries, who knows what even constitutes if rape is constituted as a crime. I'm pretty sure it is, but again, there are probably parameters that we have here in the Bahamas that they don't subscribe to. So I think it's a bit of both. And we do still have a way to go with our reporting as well, because I'm certain we don't have, because we know we're not the most open to discussing those sexual assault cases all the time.
And I think our population as well, how we have a smaller population, it would obviously seem as though it is more in comparison to the other countries as well. But like you said, Philip, access to those things, I see a lot of things being promoted on television, the hotlines, the abuse hotlines. And although I'm not aware of people who have been, I'm sure that there are many people who are taking advantage of these things in order to get the best help, to receive the best services. Like we were talking about previously, the progressive nature of our culture now, being opened and being more aware because of how we have to sit down and think about things. We are aware and we want to move past certain things, and we're just not accepting what we used to. So we're going to report more because that's what needs to be done.
Even though we have the highest amount of reports, that doesn't necessarily mean we have all being reported. I think it's just because our small numbers, as Sarah was saying, the small numbers in comparison to other Caribbean countries, we would seem as though we have more. But I feel as though it's probably due to like safety and stuff. In Bahamas, you run into the police station, do your report. But in certain countries, you cannot be seen in those places. You have other people watching out. You don't know who seeing you and stuff. So that like it's more dangerous in certain countries to like report a crime.
Yeah, and we're more community oriented too. I forgot to say,
Yeah.
look out for
And
each
for
other.
me, I think it depends on sometimes who did the crime. Let's say, for example, somebody got raped, but the person who raped was someone who's up there in the society. So if they know the police could write them off, something like that. So it all depends. Or they could pay the person off.
Yes.
That's
Thank
actually
you, Sandra.
That's
Oh, go
actually
ahead.
a good point that you made, because I remember the last episode, one of the talking points was actually that gender-based violence is something that affects people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. So in cases where they may not be able to report it, it may be that they're poor, so they may be seen as less truthful, or the opposite end, where it could be someone more powerful, and so they suppress them through certain economic reasons. And so that just goes to show there are many reasons why someone may not report a rape.
Right. To add on to what you said, like, okay, so even though we may not think so, in the Bahamas, compared to other places, the lower class and the middle class and the upper class, they're not too far apart from each other. There's always a place, like the central places, there's always somewhere to go. Like in comparison to other places, let's say the US, where you can't go to too many people because it's the disconnect, the disconnect.
I understand what you're meaning exactly. A lot of places, even though they say they have these things, it's not really accessible for everyone. A lot of places in the world, and that's kind of what I like about the Bahamas. It's not that we're small, but it's the fact that we're small and everybody knows somebody, and it's just a big community that we're able to say this happened and I need to go to this place and you'll be able to get there.
Right.
So that's something that is actually pretty good. But we still have the traditionalist people talking about, oh, you're not supposed to say anything, or people trying to silence others, So there's pros and cons, I guess.
Yeah, that stems from, because the traditional people would be more so the older people. And if it's the younger people, it's the younger people raised by the older people. And the older people were raised in a time when that was accepted.
Okay, with Alex's point where she said people who are like pillars in the community, so I'm gonna say law enforcement, police officers and pastors and stuff, in light of the recent viral video of the officers choke holding a female onto a car. How do we feel about that? What do you think that means? It's what is it, like 15 seconds, 20 seconds? How do you what do you think the fact that they went into court and the woman and one of her counterparts are being charged with assaulting police officers? What are our thoughts on that?
For me, I think I didn't really understand. I don't really understand it. I couldn't believe it. Like, why is she being charged? When I saw the she's being charged, I think damages to the G-Shock, then $100 shirt. I'm like, so her life is being compared to a watch, but you can replace a shirt that you can replace. Her life cannot be replaced. What if he did choke her a little harder and she died? Like, I don't think people are looking into it on that angle, if that makes sense.
I didn't know how to feel about it exactly, because like it was only a short clip and we don't know what happened beforehand, but that chokehold on the car, I don't believe that's happening. You should do it. I'm sure there are other ways to restrain people, and the amount of other people around while he had that person in the chokehold on the car, the amount of men around who were just walking up and down like everything was cool. I don't know. I don't know if that was. I really don't know how to feel about that. We don't know what happened beforehand or after. We don't know exactly what she did. But the person who bought that clip.
Obviously, we don't know what happened beforehand. And yes, it was a short clip, and it probably was like the ending when it got to that point. But even still, the chokehold was excessive.
It should never
be
be
the least.
Never.
Like in any event, in any case, like it's not like she was walking around with like a firearm. Well, at least I don't think so. It's not like she was walking around with a firearm and like she posed some great threat. Like excessive. Like come on, like
a trained officer.
I think you could have, and I think that's another thing. I don't know if our officers here are particularly good at de-escalating situations. We know they're good at escalating them. But in terms of like, restraining people and getting people like subduing them and calming them down in a way that doesn't aggravate the situation further, I think we know that sometimes our police officers can agitate people a little more. So sometimes traffic stops turn into big brawls because of situations like that and particular attitudes and because like certain societal attitudes. So because you feel like you're a person in authority over someone else and you try to wield that authority in a way that, lets them know that, oh, I'm in charge, I think that can have a detriment. Like that can lead down a very dark path quickly, as we saw in that video.
No time to get caught up in your feelings, man. I'm sick of time to seeing all the bloodshed. Another father lost his life the other day. Black man, wake up and find your way. Tell me, why we killing one another? Don't you recognize that it's your brother? The system got so many stuck on stupid offend, and everybody wants to shoot. Think first before you pull the trigger, man. You know how many I was supposed to kill, but let it go like water running off a hill. There's a bigger plan for my life. I cannot do it locked up or in the grave. No longer to the system will I be a slave. Like a bear, it's time to come out the cave. Big brought leave you stuck and amazed. Only if you have the mind of a slave. Caught up in the glitz and the glamour. While young brothers on the street pulling stunts, TNT drama. We gotta take the blocks back. Yes, we gotta take the blocks back. Yes, we gotta take the blocks back. No more rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Because life